Okay, so to briefly introduce myself and my background in sports and founding WAA together.
Yeah.
I was a former college football athlete. I played for one single day, um, and I tore my hamstring, and then I got medically retired. After which, I didn't really know what I want to do with my life, and I have since been in the sports and entertainment world um, for I think I'm nearing 6 years now, maybe 5 years. Working at some pretty cool events and being a part of some pretty cool things, like Super Bowl and FIFA World Cup. I helped launch a fast channel on a fairly notable broadcast network that shall remain nameless because whatever. Um, and yeah, so post football, have found a footing in the professional side of business, like the business side of sports and entertainment. And WAA has been birthed out of shared experiences, but experiences nonetheless from our previous years playing football. We were former teammates, Alec and I, and we kind of saw this big gap in um, the market. And we'll get to that later, but that's a little bit of my background. Alec, do you want to talk about your background?
Yeah, I thought it's interesting when you bring up your background because you say you played a day in college, collegiate level, which is still impressive for anyone to play collegiate. It's impressive. Like I think so. But also when they look at you now, no, it is. When they look at you now, though, what do people think? I mean,
Oh, it's crazy.
receiver, you
It's
know,
actually really
I
funny.
don't
We
know.
were no, it's like I was in a meeting the other day and my team goes, um, they made some joke about me playing in college. And they go, "How much did you used to weigh?" Or they're like, "What position did you play?" And I said, "I was a defensive end." And they're like,
Yeah,
"How much? How much did you weigh?" I was like, "I was at my peak. I was about 250." And
yeah.
they're like, "There's no way. Do you have any photos?" And they Googled my name and found the photo of me committing to SDSU with a little edit of like on my chest. I'm like, I have like my mouth guard halfway in my mouth. It's funny.
Mm.
I've since lost about 100 pounds post football, which is great for my knees, but it's hard to tell people that I played a defensive end at a Division 1 school when they're like, you look like I don't even look like a wide receiver. Most wide receivers are like 190, I think, right? At
I'm
least
trying to put it together. Yeah, what position are you built right now? Like you're going to the draft and
kicker,
well, you're 6'3", right?
6'3", 160. I think my closest
Yeah.
position I could try to get at is a kicker.
No, it's
Couldn't even be a long snapper. I'd get destroyed.
yeah, and that's going to be on the next podcast of how to lose 100 pounds for WAA nutrition.
That's right. How do you do it?
Yeah. So,
Um,
but no, yeah, my name is Alec, of course, like we said, and I would say my career was short too. I mean, I think about 2.5 weeks of college level. I played in D2 college in Nebraska, where I am born and raised. Yeah, it wasn't too much of any hype or success to talk about or anything really. I do claim of any like accomplishment. Um, you make it to the level, but when you get there and, I don't know, for me, it's not something I loved the routine personally. I think it was different for you for being medically, hurt, but
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
I never took it to the next level. I pursued school and that led me to, where we're at today. So,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
can't complain, but yeah,
Um,
it's interesting.
no, for sure. Thank you. So, I'm sitting here like, thank you. Like this feels like an interview. Like we're not just sitting around talking.
Pretty
Like,
much.
okay, whatever.
I don't know anyone that watches
Um,
it. They're like, why are they talking like that to each other?
literally, it's because we've never done a podcast before, and this feels like we have to like act a certain way or something like that. But this will get better over time, we swear. But bear with us. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the goal of the podcast. So I think
Mm.
very, uh, God, I don't want to sound corporate, but I'm just going to say it. Very high level. We aim to provide valuable insights for student athletes and general fans, while also just kind of showcasing Alec and I. A company is just that. It's a company. We're the founders, but when people want to work with us, when student athletes want to sign with us, they're really going to be working with us. So I think the goal of this podcast is to give people like a background of who we are, our values, who we are as individuals. The hope is that not only the, you know, experience and the backgrounds that Alec and I bring to the table, but us as individuals is what brings someone to say like, I would love to work with you guys. And I think this podcast gives us a really good platform to kind of just display that. So personally, I think that is the goal of this. And so yeah, it's going to be an exciting season. It's going to be exciting time to just uh, talk the things that we love. We're extremely passionate about what we're doing. This is not something that we're doing just for the fun of it. We're doing it because we really truly think that we can be game changers. Our slogan is
Yeah.
to empower athletes while upholding values, which is something that we've both very much signed on to. And throughout the course of this podcast, we'll get into a lot of the reasons behind that, and also it's just some like the tenets that we live by here at WA. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really fruitful conversation each week, and it's going to be exciting to see how this develops because I think we're both incredibly not used to being on camera outside of like a corporate
So,
setting for a Zoom call, and we
uh,
don't even have our cameras on, and we're definitely not used to talking for this long, but we're gonna get into it. So, um, yeah, do you want to add anything to like what you hope to accomplish with this podcast? If not, we can move on. But if I'll leave the door open or the floor to you, Alec.
yeah, I think what is to be accomplished is generally what you just stated. I think it's also important, and we'll get more into this. I think with our personal experience, with not just I know we didn't have a impressive resume of collegiate experience, but with our experience after, with sports to where we are today. I think it's the relation, the experience, and also just I think yeah, like I said, relation. I think relating to people, especially athletes, um, with their value, beliefs, and purpose, that can really just hit home with certain families, athletes, and just to translate that for people to understand like who we are, what we mean. Uh, yeah. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. I want to talk about kind of just like peel back the layers and like show the background of like kind of where this all began and started in terms of like really specifically WAA. But like there
Mhm.
was um not even that long ago. I think it was like last year in Christmas time. I went over to uh, just for background, by the way. So I'm in our offices in Los Angeles, California. This is where I live.
Mhm.
Um, Alec is in Omaha, Nebraska, where he lives with our mascot. Sometimes the mascot comes out here. Um, but Alec lives in Nebraska, so we have um, two areas where we operate. Right now, I'm a registered athlete agent in the state of California, and Alec is a registered athlete agent in the state of Nebraska. So that's just important. Like, I think uh, clarity. But there was a time. So I'm not going to get into too many details of the specifics, but there was a moment in my career where um, I was brought into something that didn't really sit right with me. And I know how broad in general that is, but um, it didn't really matter what the thing was. The thing was uncomfortable for me to be involved with, and I felt as if I didn't want to, take that upon myself and say I was involved with this. And so I didn't. I was asked to be involved, and I said no, and it sort of backfired on me, and it really opened my eyes to the harsh reality of like what the majority of sports and entertainment looks like on the back end, which is the unfortunate reality is very selfish and self-centered. And so after that happened, Alec and I sat down and we really talked about like what can we do differently. Excuse me, I keep coughing. And so what we can do differently, we literally sat on his couch in Nebraska with a notebook that I still have, and I'm sure, I mean, this thing is chock full of a bunch of stuff like this, but we broke down what like this would look like, because
Yeah.
we knew that we could be different just individually, but then as a company, like how can you set yourself apart, um, from your competition and whatnot, and so um that really came down to like our core values and like what our goal with representing athletes was. And while we're extremely passionate about making athletes the most money that they can with their NIL, we're also really passionate about like values and life outside of football and the type of person you are and your character and that kind of thing. So that really starts with us, those who represent you. So we we devised a small business plan of sorts, and what that would look like, and what would it look like to represent athletes and stuff like that. Yeah. Do you obviously that wasn't that long ago, but do you remember that conversation, Alec? And anything notable from that?
Yeah, I think inspiration with where we're at now from 7 months ago to where we want to be in 6 months to 4 years to who knows. I think a lot of what Joseph said with what we stand for. A character and a person, what we represent. I think that matters a lot, and I think that is being said a lot, but I don't think that's being shown a lot, especially with me and Joseph's experience in corporate. Putting in broadcast companies and behind the scenes of what you guys are seeing on your screens today. Um, I mean, not always, but we've been put in situations, more Joseph in sense, but just working in corporate where um, not everything is followed to the T, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that's a bad thing necessarily, but for the way we want to live and operate and run, especially a business, we want to go in a different direction, and I think that attracts. It's like a different type of light, and I think people want to be around that light a lot. So
100%. Yeah.
yeah, it shows volume, so that's good.
Yeah, no, for sure. So with that background, what does WAA do? Um, Simply put, we represent student athletes and their best interests in a wide range of things. So the most obvious that people are going to think of is like marketing endorsements or deals with businesses, going out and finding money essentially to work with an athlete. So I think the big thing right now that the NIL like landscape looks like is we both played college football. We know how insanely busy life gets like year round. It's nuts. Um, Up at 4 in the morning, down at like 11 p.m., classes in between. It's the most grueling thing in the entire world. And it is hard to have a social life and have a successful career in sports and be a successful student. On top of all that, trying to add in, I'm I'm my own business now. I have to go and run said business because that's really what the NIL landscape is right now. Is that like, yes, there are collectives, yes, there are group deals and stuff like that, but um, each individual is essentially operating as a business. They have services to offer, and it's them against basically anyone else that's available. So it's setting yourself apart. It's understanding what you have to offer. It's understanding how much to charge. It's understanding what businesses to speak to. All of those kinds of things. So that's really where we step in and say like, do what you're like killing it at. Don't add the stress of trying to manage all of that. on the NIL side. Um, it's a lot, and it's understandable why platforms that are marketplace platforms are so popular is because it's easy. And anything worth doing is not easy. And so the reason why there are platforms where you can just go and do a shout out for $10 or do a post for
Dude.
$50, or the reason why that's so popular is because
Ah,
it's very low barrier to entry for the 400,000 plus student athletes in the NCAA. And so it's enticing and it's appealing. And I think if given the opportunity, most student athletes would look at being represented by someone and the personal effect of that, and then look at a marketplace approach and go, I want this side. And to dispel some, I don't know, preconceived notions or ideas that might come with athlete representation. Number one, it doesn't, there's no cost to a student athlete who signs with an athlete until that agent actually does something of value. So it's if the agent goes and finds a deal for an athlete, then they make money. It's not the other way around. So it's not like you have to come in and I'll pay you $500 a month to manage my what? No. And if anyone offers you that, run. That you don't want to work with that person. A, they're
yeah.
looking out for their own interests, and B, what? You're paying someone to represent you? Like that's ridiculous. Um, so yeah, so we're here to essentially act as your representative in your best interest, and
Mm.
in a myriad of ways. And it doesn't just stop at like finding you money. It helps. It goes beyond that to like you have questions about something, you are curious about a lease on a car, um you want to look for the best flight home, you want to like it's so wide ranging. And again, the only money exchange that ever happens between an athlete and an athlete agent is when that athlete agent brings money to the table. So it makes, again, when given those two opportunities of like we have a marketplace approach where I can just throw my stuff on and it's whatever, versus someone personally advocating for you and personally representing you. Not two things I think are super important there is the marketplace approach. You're you're not charging enough because it's hard to charge the fees that you should be when you're up against thousands of people on a platform. That's one. And two is when you are represented by someone, it's that person's job to find you the best deals, not $10 posts, not, $50 shout outs on your story and that kind of stuff. I'm not dogging on that by any means. Money is money. So there's nothing wrong with that by any metric, but it's still, you could be
No, there's
doing
something
so
wrong.
much more. Yeah, there might be something wrong with that. But so yeah, so it's what we're offering is to just we want to be a huge help to athletes. Um
Mm.
and uh and yeah, I don't know, what do you have anything to add to that, Alec?
Yeah, I mean, you covered a lot there. A lot of good. And you're right on. I think the biggest thing, I was about to bring up like, certain companies and software and brand, but I'm like, let's
Yeah.
let's keep this neutral. We don't need to burn bridges in this world. But yeah, you're right. Like the whole $10 shout out, even with Instagram or a meet and
Yep.
greet and you name it. I mean, there are
Yep.
athletes here that don't even know their worth or value, and there's some that do, but maybe don't know to the extent, and vice
Right.
versa. So it's like in that sense, it it is wild. But then you also put yourself in their shoes, right? I mean, for instance, like me and you being
Mhm.
18, 19 years old, you know, having some hype
Oh, it
around
looks
your
super
name,
enticing. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, man. I mean, like, we would do anything for some Canes or some Chick-fil-A on some, quick Saturday meal. Like, let me go,
Yeah.
like, post, like, an IG story and go get some free, Chick-fil-A. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, like, times
Yep.
are different when you're 18, 19 for how you're thinking instead of value. So that's okay though. I mean,
100%.
things are gonna change. And that's okay. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
want to
that's the
I want
main
to
thing
pull
right
up
there.
there's some like just so people are like really aware. Um
Hmm.
I want to pull up some statistics on what it looks like to work with a student athlete, and because I think there's a lot of misconceptions, right? Like people with small followings can't do a lot, or
Yeah, that's
because honestly, right now the way this market is set up is companies, we'll call them conglomerates, made the rules and told you you had to follow the rules, and then tricked you and told you essentially that like only the top 1% of the athletes can do anything meaningful with NIL. Which there's
yeah,
first of all, there's countless examples of that not being true, of non, star athletes doing an amazing job capitalizing on their NIL. That's one. But two is, who says we have to follow their rules? Um, this is called game changers for a reason. Like looking at the current landscape and saying, I think that can be done differently. I think that should be done differently and that should be done better is a really important aspect of what really any athlete agent is going for. I think what we that's in and of itself, just picking an athlete agent over just trying to manage it yourself, whether it's WAA or some other company. I think as long as you do your due diligence and you know who that person is and you trust them and that kind of stuff, is already 10 steps ahead of what the current rules are. And so I just sorry, it took me a while to find these statistics. So
no, you're
let me
right
read.
though. And the data you're about to show, I think it's the same of what you're about to show. It is like alerting, and like you don't think about it. And also like to backtrack before you even get onto that with the misconception of it's like with the whole legal side of having an agent and what you have to do and what you have to owe and like it's like the what's it called? I forget the deal in the music industry. The what's the deal? They basically own you. They own everything. What's it called?
Oh yeah.
Drewski.
Yeah.
The influencer.
Yep.
Yeah, his label could have been record. They do the whole thing like they own like
Yeah.
99%. They make him sign it.
Ridiculous, dude.
So it's like people. I get
It's
it.
ridiculous.
People are on guard thinking they're gonna get finessed and used. So
Oh my
I get
gosh,
it.
dude. Yeah. If I could like, if I can't support or like understand or empathize more with there being this like preconceived notions with agents in general,
Yeah.
no question, there are horror stories of what kids and even professional athletes have gone through with agents, because a vast majority of them, again, are selfish and looking out for themselves. Uh, it's really sad, honestly. It doesn't take a whole lot of research or a whole lot of looking into to realize that, like, oh my gosh, this is really widespread. I read a
Yeah.
story. There was a kid that um, I think he had like between his junior and senior year had signed with like 7 different athlete agents or something like that. That's crazy. That like, and it's for a good reason, because each of them was like burning him essentially, which is horrible. But it's there, and that's a huge push as to why WA was founded. It was like, we cannot just conform to what the industry standard is and say, yeah, that's normal, that's okay, you know.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so here's some statistics that will hopefully put into perspective the value that an athlete brings to the table. So legacy influencers, typical influencers, people that just have a following for being, TikTok famous or whatever. Legacy influencers average an engagement rate of 1.4% in 2022. College athletes, college student athletes average an engagement rate of 15%, which is 11% higher. That's crazy in and of itself, just right there. Okay, there's more. Business accounts with 10 to 100,000 followers on Instagram see a 5.22% view rate for their stories. College athletes with the same amount of followers range an average, college athletes with the same follower range have an average reach rate of 22.3%. So 5.22% for businesses with 10 to 50, or 10 to 100,000 followers, 22.3% for student athletes. So same amount of followers, they're just not a business, they're not a legacy influencer or a student athlete. Brands would need to hire
Yeah.
11 non-athlete influencers to match engagement achieved by one athlete. Let that settle in. What? Brands would need to hire 11 regular influencers to match the engagement that they get with working with one athlete. And we're not talking on the fringes here. This isn't like Bronny James or like these insane athletes. This is actual statistics. They would need to hire 4 non-athlete influencers to match the number of impressions achieved by one athlete. It keeps getting better. An athlete with fewer than 5,000 followers can realistically achieve more engagement than a non-athlete influencer with 50,000 followers. Fans of college sports are 1.6 times more likely to have a household income that exceeds $100,000 compared to the rest of the US population. So, gone are the days of assuming that, oh, I only have a couple thousand followers, I can't do anything with that. I can get away with, charging nothing for my NIL. It's sad, but it's super understandable because of legacy influencers and legacy doing marketing and
Yeah.
branding and that kind of stuff. So, so there was rules that were set in place by, we'll call them middlemen conglomerates, that everyone just accepts. And we aim to change that. We aim to be
Yeah.
different. So what does that look like practically speaking? I think just very briefly, an athlete decides, okay, I don't want to do this by myself. I want someone to represent me. You sign with WAA. WAA then takes your NIL, and we go and we find businesses where they want to work with you. Because right now it's businesses put out like a bat signal of like, here's what we want to do. And if they have like a $10,000 budget, they're going to pay hundreds of different athletes to try to do something. And they're not going to get any engagement because it's inauthentic and it doesn't work. So WAA is going to find companies that actually want to work with you and vice versa. Like it should be a symbiotic relationship where you're not a part of, hundreds of athletes doing the same thing. And that's how you capitalize on your NIL, is you get better deals and that kind of stuff. That's how you make more on your NIL. That along with the myriad of other things that we're here to help with, answering questions, helping you find a car, helping you figure out life now that you're in college, helping you potentially prepare for a draft, there's a million different things that we're here to help with, that will only benefit an athlete. So we are stark believers that athletes are unique individuals, each with their own unique NIL. And so, yeah, our goal is to connect passionate people with passionate companies, and that's how you get the best deals. So, do you have anything to add to that, Alec?
No, I mean, it's interesting with all that data, which is just crazy to me, right? Because like
Nuts.
it feels like we've been living in a lie with, I don't know, especially with like, when did TikTok go? Like 2020, 2019, I
Yeah,
forget. Pre-COVID, right?
something like that. Yeah, pre-COVID for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, even prior to that, with Instagram being like Instagram influencers, and from prior to that, it's been around, but it's getting, more popular for more influencers in the world we live today. It's
Hmm.
it seems like that's the way.
Yeah,
That's who makes money, and that's just like not the case. And I think that's what we've been lied to, and we tell each other that, like, don't compare to what you see online. They're really not that well off, or I mean, of
yep,
course, the 1%, but most of these people, the engagement people are bringing in is not what we think, and like, it just kind of makes you think like we're just living in a big lie. And yeah, man, these athletes, they have it coming, like, especially with just the engagement they have. And it's so true with, college, like college campuses and college fans, man. College fans are crazy. They're just nuts.
Nuts.
Like I know people that will do the dumbest things financially for their team. And we don't need to get into that right
We
now. We'll keep
we
it
gotta
PG. But it's
we gotta talk
insane.
about weddings. We gotta talk about weddings in Nebraska and Nebraska football. Do you want to talk about this?
Please, yeah. It's basically a sin to have a wedding on a game day. You need to have it on a bye week, or else like no one's coming to your wedding. And if that happens and you have a wedding, everyone is gonna have their phones out watching that game. No one's gonna watch you get married. Um, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, literally, it's a rule
That's
though, and
so
everyone
messed
knows it.
up, but
It's terrible.
it is.
but
Yeah. I think there were
yeah,
statistics that were released. You can look it up in Nebraska if you look up like bye weeks and then like the uptick of weddings that weekend and then like the immediate downfall, like pre and post bye weeks.
yeah.
I'm getting married this year. And I inadvertently, this was not on purpose. I picked the bye week.
Hmm.
And half my family lives in Nebraska, so thank God.
Yeah.
Um,
No, we're
yeah.
thankful for you.
The other thing I
Yeah,
think I've seen in Nebraska, red cars. People will buy a car and
yeah.
get the red car because it's Nebraska's colors. How
Especially with like
crazy
those
is that?
ankle tattoos, man. I know 15 people with a Nebraska ankle tattoo. Why do I know that?
They're not normal. College football fans are just a breed of their own in all good ways, but some bad ways. But in all great
You
ways,
brought yeah,
it's
you brought this up with the bye week as well, but like what's average? Like Omaha average, let's just say like I don't know, like let's say a $10,000 wedding, okay? I don't know.
Mhm.
Let's just put 10 grand for the thing. Okay? You get married for
Sure.
10 grand on a normal week. Okay? A bye week in Nebraska, that's raising an extra 15, 20,000 just to have it on a bye week. That's the world we live in Nebraska. Like, yeah.
It's it's nuts. But it's awesome. It just shows how much people love football. How much people
Yeah.
love being a fan. It's awesome. I
Capitalize on
think
it.
it's an amazing
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Cool. So, do you personally have any uh anecdotes or stories from playing football that you want to share? I'm going to leave that super open. You can talk about whatever you want or nothing and we can go on to the next section, but do you have
Ooh.
anything notable or memorable from how many years has it been since you played football last?
Oh, 20
I'm almost
years
at
ago.
10 years, dude.
No way.
Almost. Almost. Yeah. I'm
Dude,
like
that is actually
8 years.
creepy. I'm
Yeah.
7.
Isn't that
Wow.
nuts?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much memory. I mean, because me and you, he grew up playing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, yeah, I mean, for those that they're gonna figure out a lot. Especially in the future going forward. I mean, when did we start playing? 5, 6?
Yeah. Something like that. Something like
Yeah,
that.
and then
Did you
I
ever play
mean,
flag, by the way? I was thinking about this the
yeah,
other day. You played flag. Okay. I did not.
1 year.
I only play okay. And it's got to be an age thing, right? Like that you're not allowed to play tackle football until you're a certain age. But if you want to, then
I
your
believe
kids play
so.
flag.
I think the rules have become more careful today than it was though. Because
Yeah.
when your kid could basically eat his own New York strip, that's when you're putting like a helmet and shoulder pads on the kid, and he's gonna go
Yeah.
get a concussion. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's okay, son, with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked earlier about how big I used to be. I grew up large too, and I was what they called a striper. That's what they call them, right? Stripers.
Dude, I forgot
Is
about
that what
that.
the name
Yeah.
was? So
For
okay,
those who can run the
for
ball.
people who
Yeah.
right. So for people who don't know, when you're a child and you play, this is so messed up. When you're a child and you play football, in order to level the playing field, if you weigh a certain amount, they make you stand on a scale at the beginning of the season. I think they do it like every few weeks. Like
Yeah.
like Biggest Loser, you stand on a scale
Yeah.
And if you weigh a certain amount at a certain age, you get a piece of tape put on your helmet, and they
Yeah.
call it a stripe. The rule is, if you are a striper and you pick up the ball is dead immediately. That because
Hmm.
it would I think the thinking is it would be unfair for very large kids to pick up or to be like a running back or to ever touch the ball because other kids it's whatever. I remember there was a kid that we played with who because there wasn't just a stripe there wasn't just a striper limit, right? Where like if you weigh over this many pounds, you become a striper. There was also a league wide weight limit. So if you are over a certain poundage, you can't play that year. They don't allow you to play because they think it's going to be
Yeah.
dangerous for other kids. We played with this kid. I'm not going to say his name, but we played with this kid and we were at the preseason or whatever weigh in, and he was like 4 or 5 pounds over. And
Yeah.
he was a big boy. It's a large number that you have to hit for that age range. And I distinctly remember it was in the middle of summer that we were doing weigh-ins. He had to go outside, and we were doing weigh-ins at a high school. He had to go outside and he had to run. He had to run laps until he lost 4 pounds, which is a
Dude,
horrible thing to do to a kid.
you're missing a big key in this thing.
What?
It
Wait,
was
what am
like
I missing?
100 degrees out.
Oh,
So first off, like how old were we? Like normal, like
young.
okay, like being heavy at that age was like 190. Like that's a lineman. Like you're big at 190, I think. And he was around 230,
He was
and like
huge.
the cutoff was like 225 or something like that.
Yeah.
And we put what boxers use, you know, like you cutting, you know, like fighters, the trash bag method. So he trash bagged
Mhm.
it. You remember that? You tie it,
Yes.
so it was all water weight. He just lost 5 pounds
Around
of
the
water weight. And funny story,
and
I
he
saw
did it.
that happen, and he did it. And I was like 2 pounds off from getting my stripe removed so I could run the ball that year. Never had it. Well, I grabbed the trash bag and ran around twice, and I got my stripe removed that year. I remember that.
Yeah.
That was so cool. Yeah,
Dude,
that
that's
was
talk about like the most ethereal feeling in the world, being a striper and then
yeah. You just get
forgetting that you
back
have
to play.
a stripe on your head, and then there's like a fumble and you pick it up and you're like sprinting for your life, hoping that ref doesn't remember that you have and you can just make it to the end
Yeah,
zone. It's it's like the
yeah.
most amazing feeling that they just strip away from you because it's like you're too big. You're not allowed to touch the
That's a
ball.
lineman's
But
dream too. A lineman's dream is to we always fantasize the way of on the defensive like jumping up and tipping a pass or catching it, and running down, or like picking up the ball and running for a touchdown and trucking someone. Like, dude, like we all have that thought in our head of like this is gonna happen. Never did,
yep.
but
Nope.
yeah,
Nope, it didn't.
I mean,
But
a lineman's dream.
yeah, it is. Man, Titans football. What those were the
I thought
days.
I thought you were about to say the dude's name. I was like, that's so foul.
Nope, I'm not gonna burn that kid.
I was like,
Good for him.
after like we have character.
No, no.
I remember
It
that
was
though.
messed up. I think it mentally can't be great for a child to go through that. I'm just gonna say that,
No,
but
I remember for me,
who
I was
knows?
like, feeling pretty off about myself. I was like, because I couldn't run the ball. I was like, man, I'm too fat for life. That's why I kept telling myself. I was like, I'm too fat for this life.
So bad.
You know what?
Oh
I ate too
man,
much Taco Bell growing up. Yeah, I get it.
we love Taco Bell. It's the best fast food restaurant. Chrysler 300, right? All right, we're moving on. Um, so I want to touch a little bit about post football and what that looked like. And I'll. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start about just like a very brief overview of like trajectory of you finish football? How are you? Like, what's that look like to get to here? Do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I'll make it, short and sweet, but to the point. Yeah, after football, I think, yeah, community college for 2 years. Dropped out of that, and funny enough, the last year when I was in community college, I was actually like living with Joseph, and we were. that Joseph's, always been a businessman, and we call it the incubator in the basement, just living with him, and who knows what was happening, always trying to do something and always, working for the next thing. But yeah, after 2 years of community college and such, dropped out and went into basically IT, and that meaning there was just online classes through Google that interest me, and found some type of navigation in towards that, and found some likeness, and kept pursuing that and moving forward into that realm of career. And yeah, then I found something locally that offered like an intense, like, 8 week or 12 week program, sorry, for computer science. This whole niche of, it's like equivalent of a bachelor's degree, and it just makes it into like a Monday Friday section of, like a 8 to 5. And yeah, it sucked. And it's funny because I don't really even program now that much. It's like, but I do think that it helped me in a background for, my job today and for where it brought me today, in the sense of having some type of tech background and knowledge, which is thankful, for that. But yeah, then got hired um, at my current job and been there for 3 years. And yeah, and funny enough, actually, the only reason I'm at the job I am is because of Joseph. Joseph was my boss, and yeah,
I don't know about that.
Joseph.
I
Well,
made the
you know,
intro.
Joseph's humble, but Joseph's the one that, you started the conversation. You referred me. So, yeah,
You were
pretty big.
qualified. You were qualified. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, post college, post football for me looks like a huge symphony of just not really knowing where I was going. Um, Leaving college in Southern California after tearing my hamstring, I went home to Nebraska, where my family lived, and I went also to community college, and ended up getting my associate's degree, and then in video and audio communications. So I was into filmmaking and creativity and that kind of stuff, and so I took that and I worked on a cruise ship for a while. It was an experience. I'll just say that. It was rough. Worked on a cruise ship for a while, and then ended up moving back to Nebraska, and got a job offer to move out to California and work at a sports and entertainment company. And it was an amazing opportunity. I worked there for 4.5 years. While I was there, I got my bachelor's degree. I finished my bachelor's degree, and then I got very recently here in January. I just graduated with my MBA. I've finally hit all the marks of education that I think I was setting out to. And yeah, and so that's what brought me here. This podcast totally is going to touch on a lot of things that aren't sports related. Um, I would love to just talk about like how I got my job at said company. I won't say the company just because I don't know what the rules are and I don't really care. So I'm just going to say it's a large company, like one of the major Hollywood studios. And it will take all of 3 seconds for someone to look me up on LinkedIn and realize what company that was. But I don't care because I'm not saying it. But it was against all odds that a kid from Nebraska could even get a job offer to that company, let alone while I wasn't even living in Los Angeles. So I'm going to give away this strategy that I used for people that are looking at like getting a job where they don't feel like they're qualified for. Granted, this was in 2019, so take all of this with a grain of salt. I know that the current landscape of finding a job is terrible. So, but this is the exact strategy that I used to get a job that I was severely not ready for, but got it anyways. And it worked out amazingly. But if there's a company or someone that you want to work for, this is how I would do it. If you go on to LinkedIn, first of all, make sure your LinkedIn is bueno. So if you go on to LinkedIn and you have a company that you want to work for, let's just pick one for example. Let's just say Nike. And you're like, my dream is to work for Nike. I want to move to Oregon. I want to work in their headquarters. How do I work for Nike? You go on to LinkedIn, and in the search bar, you just hit enter. Don't type anything in. You hit enter, And then you go to people, like you filter for people. So you say people because there's people, company, pages, whatever, people. And then you do company and you filter it to, you just type in Nike and just start connecting. And I'm not saying just HR people, just start connecting with people at Nike, period. And you can even get more specific, like if you want to go live in, the city that the headquarters are in, if it's a big company, then you can get more specific. But so you can filter to like Oregon employees at Nike. Connect with as many as you can. I think you're allowed like 250 invitations a day or something like that. Can't really remember what it is, but max out your limit, and at least 10 to 15 of those will accept for a number of reasons. It doesn't really matter. The second one of them connects with you, you now have a mutual. You are a second to a lot of people who work at that company. And so when you start requesting more people, it's going to say that you are friends with or you are connected with. And they'll be like, oh, they're connected with my coworker. I'll connect with them. They must be whatever. So it literally just getting like one or two people from a company that you want to work at to connect with you will automatically like boost your cred or whatever. So you do that. And then once you actually have connected with quite a few people at said company, then you can go find the HR people or the people recruiting people or whatever. And if there's a job that you have in mind that's on their LinkedIn page or whatever, you can literally just send it to them and say, hey, I think I would be a great fit for this. That's one strategy. It's not a great one. The better one is find articles either on LinkedIn or on Google about that company. So if it's Nike, go like find news articles, like filter by news on Google and like read the article, send it to like an HR person and be like, this is an interesting thing. Like this is a really cool thing. Like spark up a conversation that has nothing to do with the job. Just start to build a relationship with them. Eventually, one of those people will remember your name and remember who you are or whatever. And you can like bring in the idea of, something outside of just like, oh, we're a conversational relationship. The best advice I would say is just ask someone for 5 minutes of coffee or whatever, or 10 minutes of coffee. It can be virtual coffee too. You can just be like, hey, are you free sometime this week for like 10 minutes? I really respect your career and I really respect the advice that you that like you could give to me. Is there any shot we could meet for 5 minutes on Zoom this week? Everybody has 5 minutes. Everybody will say yes to that. Not everybody, but some people will say yes to that. And that's how you do that. You just do that over and over again, and until you're on the good side of like an HR person, because you're competing against hundreds of people for jobs. So you have to set yourself out, apart somehow, some way. So that's how I did it when I was still living in Nebraska to get a job in a state that I didn't even live in yet. I commend everyone who's able to get a job, I commend everyone who's able to quit their job, move to a city without any plan, and just figure it out. I've never understood the amount of stress that must put on someone, but it's amazing. But if you don't want to do that route and you want to have something set up for you in a new city or just in the city that you're already in, that's the advice I would give. Which was a little bit of rambling, but I think it's worth telling because it's helped a lot of people get
Yeah,
jobs.
it has. It helped me. It helped me a lot. I remember I was looking for 3 months, and I got like, you know, prior to the job I'm at now, yeah, 3 months of looking, and I got what, three hits maybe, and they weren't even
Mm-hmm.
hits, man. They were the. It's like the when you think you have an interview and they really just call you, and it's not that deep at all. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, you're just like, why did I do this? And then they
Yeah.
don't call you back again. Well, and then I
Yep.
took your approach. I remember in 1 week I had like 20 interviews lined up, and I was like, "Yo, this is cool." It's simple as that
It
is. I
works.
mean,
Yeah.
it puts some effort in, but what doesn't? What good doesn't take some effort? It's like
Yeah.
it's just you got to network. You got to get yourself out there. You know,
Yep.
it's like
Did you ever,
you keep putting yourself in the pool.
when you were looking for jobs, did you ever almost I almost did this when I was in San Diego, but did you ever fall for or almost fall for Cutco job? Do you know what that is?
No, but I've heard I almost joined a pyramid scheme when I was
Yeah,
like
okay.
15,
Similar to that.
16. No,
Similar to
I
that.
was 17,
No, you were
18.
older, I think. Wasn't it?
Seven, I
I don't
was
know.
like 18, 19, 18, 19 years old. I was a freshman or
Yeah.
sophomore in college, and you told me you were like, "This is a pyramid scheme." And
Cuz
I
I
was
went
like,
through this.
"Oh."
Cuz I went through this. I was in it was in the off season, my freshman year, and I needed a job in San Diego, and I applied for a job that ended up being Cutco, which, if anyone who doesn't know that, Cutco is knives that you sell door to door. And the way it works is they get you on, and they get you on by showing you, like, before the age of requiring to show salaries, which I know only some states do that. Like California, we're fortunate enough that like every job listed, you have to be able to see the salary. That this was way before that. Before you had to list the salary, they listed the salary on Cutco, and they were like insanely high salaries. And they were straight up lying because it was like a sales job that was selling stuff door to door, but they were like, you have the potential to make $90,000 and or something like that. It was like $20 an hour at the time, which was like, oh my gosh. And I went to this interview, and it was like a group interview style. And I remember I was so excited. And then I called my parents, and they're like, run away. They're like, what they do is they make you buy the knives, buy the product that you are selling. You have to buy them from the company, and then you have to go sell them door to door. And the best way that they get you to do that is to sell them to your friends and family. It's a horrible marketing scheme. So anyone who's ever been caught by one of those, I feel you. I almost fell for it.
How
We
long? How long did you realize? How
I went
long
to the
was that,
first
man?
interview, and I called my parents on my way back to my dorm, and I was like, I
Okay.
found an amazing job. And they're like, describe it. And
See,
I did. And then they were like, nope. And then I worked at JC
I
Penney in the men's section.
there you go. Hey, there you go. Nothing wrong with that. I uh I was in the pyramid scheme a lot longer, dude. I was in the pyramid for I was in the pyramid for 2 weeks, man. 2 weeks. I went on like 3 coffee meetings the whole time, bro. I was like, dude, we're gonna get so rich. Like you know that belief
So,
of like
oh,
you
dude.
cracked it. You
You're like,
know,
I figured
the
it
whole goal.
out.
They don't know, but like you know how gullible I am. Like, so for those, me and
Used to
Joseph
be.
used to live together.
Used to be.
We used to live
That was a
together
long, that was a
in Los
long time
Angeles,
ago.
and yeah, he used to like drive around in LA a lot, and Joseph would be notorious for, and he's right most of the time because you do know your random facts. It's like the most random
This
facts
is
of
a
like, why would
Batman
someone do
story.
that? You do know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right. Um, and for those that know Batman, is it the Dark Knight? I think it's the Dark Knight when
I
they're
think
in
it's the Dark
the
Knight.
yeah, right, when he's like, I don't wear hockey pants, Is it that? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that scene in the
Parking
parking
garage.
garage because it's yeah, like parking garage. That one looked just like it. Like it was like the
Yeah.
most whatever. And yeah, Joseph's like, yeah, man, they shot Batman here, and I'm like sitting there, I'm like, oh, realizing it's shot in Chicago. So then, like, what the last 3-4 months of every single time we've driven by a street, you're like, dude, that's where this was
Yeah.
filmed. This was where, I'm sitting there
Yeah.
like, gullible.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah,
welcome.
dude. I was like 85% sure. And I was like, I'll gamble on 15%. It was totally shot here. It was not. And I got
Yeah,
immediately called
man.
out for it. But that's okay. Um,
Dude, Gotham's in Chicago. Yeah, no.
Gotham is Chicago. We love
Yeah.
Chicago. Cool. So that was the first episode. The next episode is we're gonna dive into the evolution of NIL in college sports. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe, like, do whatever the thing is that the platform that you're on is. We we also are super into the idea of people giving us questions. So if you want to comment or email us or snail mail us a question, we will happily answer them on the air. So sincerely, thank you for listening to this messy first episode. We're excited to see where this goes. And yeah, Alec.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate it. Thanks, Joseph. And no, it was fun. I
Yeah,
had time, man. It was lot less nerve wracking than you make it out to be. You're just having a conversation
100%.
about WAA and life, man. And then
That's right.
apologize for those
Yeah.
that keep seeing
And
Toby
to
in
be
the
like
background.
extra.
He's like, I see, you're talking, and
And to be extra clear too, this is I think this is going to be the most unique episode in terms of like unstructured chaos. This was really just to serve as an introduction. I think as this goes on, we'll be a lot more focused in like different areas and as we get more comfortable doing this. But yeah, so this was incredibly enjoyable. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you next week when we're talking the evolution of NIL in college sports. See ya.